So basically for this video, I wanted to, instead of actually just doing like a chapter review like a lot of other people do, I basically just wanted to talk about the topics that came up in the latest chapter and discuss them based on other things I connected them to in the story. Hopefully we'll have interesting discussions in the comments if you do see this. The chapter this week is chapter 991, and it is titled Let Us Die. This is definitely a strange title, but it alludes to basically things that are going to come up in the end of the chapter. It basically relates to the Scabbards' struggle for trying to alleviate their country and free the people from Kaido and Orochi's rule, and although they already have gotten rid of Orochi, they still have the problem of Kaido at hand. And basically, they just want to die an honorable death in battle. Kind of like how Oden did, even though Oden's death couldn't be considered that honorable, depending on how you looked at it, even if it was pretty cool. A few other things happened in this chapter, like we continued with Drake starting to become Luffy's ally, and it once again shows Luffy's ability to connect to other people and kind of just make them his allies even if he hasn't known them for long amounts of time. However, even with Drake trying to make a connection to Luffy, that doesn't mean the rest of the crew also wanted to do it, and Jinbei, Zoro, and Frankie were the people that we saw that were most opposed to this and basically knew of somewhat of Drake's past and his past betrayals in multiple organizations, where he first started out as a Marine, then became a pirate and joined with Kaido, and now he wants to join with another faction, which is basically just joining up with Luffy. And I feel like to understand Drake, you basically have to get an understanding, so I'll give you a little backstory and just to like make you remember, I guess, which basically was just that Drake's father, Diaz Barrels, was also originally a Marine that defected from piracy. Drake was raised by his father, and basically when Doflamingo came to reclaim the Ope Ope no Mi from Roshinate and Law, Drake was also in the area. And at that time, Drake was actually around 19 years old, even if he looked very malnourished. And basically before then, Diaz Barrels had actually found the Ope Ope no Mi and was trying to sell it, but then things got more complicated once Doflamingo got involved. Which is, of course, not uncommon because Doflamingo, whenever he gets involved, things get spicy. Drake, as we now know him, has been an undercover member of SWORD, and this makes it interesting because he was switching sides, and we thought that he had just defected to piracy and then eventually joined Kaido, but he was actually doing this from before, and he had a plan for this, and he was now just putting it into action. But now, since he knew the other members of SWORD, like Kobe, and Kobe told him that Luffy could be his ally in defeating Kaido, he kind of switched sides, even though it wasn't really switching sides because he probably had the plan to take down an emperor from before. And even if Jinbei and Luffy and Frankie are opposed to this, Luffy still lets him join, of course, because you know how Luffy is. That happens all the time. But as the chapter continues, then two of the flying headliners, or the Topiropo, get involved, which are Ulti and her brother Page One. This chapter was kind of disappointing in how they dealt with Page One, because I was kind of expecting to get more from him, because basically the one other time we saw him, he just kind of fought Sandry and left, but this time he kind of just got hit by Usopp, and he was kind of just raging around before, so we really didn't get anything new from him. And I feel like this is one of the big problems that Wano has had so far, because in this arc they've just been introducing a lot of different characters, like the Oni Wabanshu, the other samurai faction that Orochi had, which we've seen literally nothing of. We have the four Yakuza bosses and Hyogoro, or Old Man Hyo. And of course, we have to have the Straw Hats be fleshed out and continue to work with them and for them to grow as the story progresses, which I feel like was just not smart because there are just so many moving parts in Wano. And I would rather have focused on a lot of the members of the Straw Hats that we haven't seen be focused on in a while. Like Sanji, I feel like even though he had his arc, he didn't have like a good and interesting, like cool, like really cool fighting moment in like a long while yet. And Chopper also hasn't had like any cool moments for like a really long time that don't have to do with like his doctoring. And one of the moments that I thought was actually going to be cool like a really long time ago was in Punk Hazard, and basically he went in his monster point, but the kids there were strong enough to beat him, which I feel like he's just been seeming weaker and weaker as the story progresses, and I wanted him to be fleshed out more and for him to grow his abilities as well, because he is on the crew of the future Pirate King, and I do want him to grow and evolve as well as the story progresses. But as I said before, Page One and Ulti are together now, and the another group that's also together is Usopp and Nami, and we've seen them together a few times, but like we haven't seen them like fight or do interact much for a very long time, because they were obviously separated for all of Dressrosa and then most of all of Totland, and they were just together for a little bit of Zoe. But now we're finally like seeing different members of the Straw Hats just be together, which is very refreshing because I feel like we haven't seen this in a very long time. And just recently in the anime, we finally got to see most of the Straw Hat crew just fight together, even if the anime isn't that great with pacing or anything right now. And as the chapter continued, we actually got a little bit more from Apoo, which is another thing I've been hoping for, because even if this arc is very crowded, it was really interesting to see more from the Supernovas, especially because we haven't seen much of them basically throughout the entire series, and we basically just had the beginning with the Sabaody Archipelago, and then we got a little bit afterwards when they were entering the New World, but we haven't seen a lot from a lot of the Supernovas, and it's been really refreshing to get to see more of them in action, even if I would have preferred some other characters getting some shine. And this is the thing that annoyed me for a second, because they had another moment where they introduced like the characters and they put like the thing of like all their title and stuff, and basically we did not get the name of Apoo's Devil Fruit once again, and we've been waiting for that for probably like over a decade, which is really annoying. Another interesting thing that this chapter basically introduced was the idea that the numbers could actually be controlled, and that Apoo's Devil Fruit could possibly do it. We've seen music be able to manipulate other characters before, like with Brook and him being able to put other characters to sleep, but I didn't realize that something like Apoo's ability could also have an effect on people's souls, basically, and alter what they wanted to do, basically. And so basically it makes sense with the numbers because they're kind of just drunks and stuff, but they just said that in fact the number that he was controlling was actually sober at that point, so Apoo's Devil Fruit may be OP in a different way than we already thought it was. In this chapter, we also got to see a little bit more from Queen, which was very interesting. And Queen is like a very strange character because sometimes he's just like trying to have fun, sometimes he's more sadistic, and now in this current situation, he seems like he's actually trying to be more assertive before, where he was more passive, and actually like try to get things done because he knows things are like becoming very chaotic. And he just pulls out a Gatling gun and just fires it at Zoro, which was pretty wacky. And I feel like this is another thing that's been happening with the change in the editor, and like since that's happened, we've got a lot of like wacky moments. And like one of them when Brooke and Frankie just ran their motorcycle in Big Mom's face, and I feel like that creativity has been really refreshing, even if it doesn't always seem like Otis like having as big of a place in writing it as much. And then after a few chapters, we finally cut back to the battle of the Minx and Kaido, and we finally, after like 3-4 chapters, however many, we get to see the Sulong forms of Inuyarashi and Nekomamushi, which I was really happy about because I've been waiting for a little while for this, and it finally gets to show us like basically more what Sulongs can look like. And I really like that because it just gets to add like more to their character designs and basically what they're like. And like we've seen a few different designs for Sulongs, and even if some of them are like seem very similar, it's very nice to see new ones and how they can grow and change as well. And then we kind of get to the end of the chapter, and this was kind of a question I was wondering from the beginning, which is basically how strong is Kinemon? And I've been wondering this from the beginning in Punk Hazard. When we first got introduced, we obviously saw that he's like powerful enough to fight off random fodder, and he could like slice up Marines even if he just had a torso. And he's like pretty fit and pretty tall. And we saw a few accomplishments from him in Punk Hazard when he was able to like cut through flames obviously and stuff, but we didn't really know the extent of his power. But then in this chapter, we finally got more of it, because remember the Boro Breath, which was able to basically destroy an entire mountain in one go? Well, Kinemon kind of cut that in half, so he was a little more powerful than we originally expected. And I feel like that's very nice to see, because like it kind of, first of all, disproves power scalars, and now it also like gives us more of a grasp on the strength of the Scabbards and everyone else. But I feel like the title of the chapter, which was Let Us Die, is now being a little bit retconned, because we actually see that Kinemon is a lot powerful than we actually realized, so he might not actually die as soon as we thought he was, because he can probably stay alive for a little bit longer knowing how powerful he is. And that's basically the end of the video. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Share it with your friends, please. I need more views. I'm trying to grow the channel, even though this is only my second video. And I'm gonna be doing daily uploads for as long as I can, so look forward to that if you actually watch these.